How's it everyone? This is Lockerhole, and in today's video I'm going to be doing an update to the BV Pathfinder build, all the things that I've changed, some of the new stuff to do with the new ascendancies. I'll also go over some of the Flask stuff, things you might have missed that are really important to make the build feel good. You might see, I'm using Asenath and Cold Iron Point. Do not worry, I'll get to that. The build's doing very well. We're sitting at about 31k armor, 35k evasion, capped res, capped spell suppression. It's all very nice. But the first question I'm sure you're all asking is, which of the new ascendancies do we need to use? We are sticking to the Wildwood Primalist. This is the one that lets you use charm sockets to augment your build. Early in maps, I was using the Magi one, which gives you movement speed if your boots are empty and resistance if your helmet is empty. That's perfect for leveling. Use that one. I stuck with that even early into white maps. I think even up until yellow maps before swapping over. This is great. Some of these mods are crazy good, and I will go over them now. Our friend Guitaraholic has actually made a list and a search on the trade site, which I will link in the description, so you can just click that link, see which ones you want, and go from there. So the main ones that are really good: chance to suppress spell damage, excellent to top off your spell suppression if you need it. Chance to gain onslaught on kill, this gives you 20% attack, cast, and movement speed. Great. Then this modifier, increased poison duration for each poison you've been inflicted recently up to a maximum of 100. This is really good for single target and increasing your total poison damage. It's not going to increase your poison DPS, but it'll increase the duration, meaning that your poison total damage will be good. This is good for single target and bossing. But let's go over the list of some of the other mods that are good that you can find on the trade site. Again, courtesy of Guitaraholic, let's have a look. So he has made us this wonderful list, which you can see here. This will highlight all of these mods that are good. I don't know about this chance to inflict withered, but when you click the link, it'll show up like this on the trade site. These are all mods that are potentially good for the build. So what you want to do, you're going to open the link. It's going to bring you to this page. You're going to click search listed items, and that'll bring you to this page. Now, ignore this. This is just hiding mods that we do not want to see. But over here, these are the mods we do want to see. So going down this list, let's say you want phasing on kill. This saves 1 point on the tree. So you say, okay, I want phasing and onslaught. So you can uncheck everything else. Some of these are prefixes, some of them are suffixes, so it's not going to show all of them. Sometimes it might not even list it. If it doesn't show, it says no results found. That's probably because you've selected two mods that are both prefixes. This is a magic item. It has to have a prefix or a suffix or both, but it can't have two prefixes or two suffixes. So if you select two mods, nothing shows up. It's probably because they're both prefixes or both suffixes. So you can see here, this one, chance to gain onslaught, chance to gain phasing. I don't know if this guy's actually going to sell it. It's very underpriced. These ones are a bit more expensive, but what you can do is kind of split them up. So let's say I want phasing and I want increased poison duration. Let's see, what do these ones cost? This 100C. Now what you can do, Guitaraholic has set these numbers fairly high. If you want to look for cheaper versions, what you can do is just remove this number in the minimum. This 3, you can turn that down to 1 or 2%. And now we can search, you see these ones are all 1C. 15% chance to gain phasing, even 10% is more than adequate. For this modifier, I would try and search for 2%. So you can go back to there and go for 2%. You see these are still fairly cheap, 10C, 12, 15. But yeah, you can mix and match these if you need spell suppression, which I don't think is on the list. No, he hasn't added it. Let's add chance to suppress spell damage. Here you go, 5%, 8%, and again, you can change that number. I'm gonna update this. Other modifiers that are useful: mana reservation, efficiency of skills, chance to blind is defensive, strength, intelligence, resistances, life on kill. Banner skills have no reservation is nice. Magic utility if Flask applied to you have increased effect. This is very strong. You see no results found. It's probably because these are both suffixes. So we can look at the price of this. This is an excellent mod, and you can see it is alone very expensive, but this is super, super, super good. So here is this list. It's in the description. See what you need for the build and go from there. Just a side note, the strength and intelligence one, which you may need, is very finicky. I don't know why. If you search for strength and intelligence, it does not show up. If you search for 2 strengths and intelligence with count 1, there it shows up. So I've provided a separate link. Thank you to Don for sorting this out for us. But strength and intelligence, you may need this. So there's also a link for that in the description. Now, next up, Asenath and Cold Iron Point. I know you're thinking, why am I using this? I said use Obliteration, and I was using Obliteration and Rare Gloves up until yesterday. But I wanted to test this because I played the previous version. The previous version is perfect. It's totally fine. This, however, does give you an increase of damage and slightly more consistent explosions. However, there is a massive drawback, and that drawback is we are losing our glove slots, which means we are losing 3 suffixes, which are very important on this build, especially early on. You're going to need your strength, your intelligence, your spell suppression, resistances, and this offers almost none of it. We do get some intelligence. Another upside of these is that you get curse enemies with temporal chains on hit, which is great. But again, another drawback is you need to now put in Whispers of Doom, which is on the build, but we usually only allocate this later. So this is a very stat hungry item. One of the main things that we are not only losing 3 suffixes, we're also losing 15% spell suppression from this mastery. This says that if our gloves, boots, body armor, and helmet have evasion rating, we get 15% spell suppression. These gloves do not have evasion rating, so we're losing 3 suffixes and we're losing 15% spell suppression, which is about, you can make that out to be about 4 suffixes. This is why I didn't recommend this. Also, these gloves, I think I bought this for 40C or 45C, so they're more expensive. However, if you do want to go this route, it is really good, and you don't have to go full DPS. You can go 1 Cold Iron Point and still stick with the Dendrobate. If you do go this route, you will probably have to allocate these suppression nodes, and then also grab some suppression on your charm sockets like this. So I am spell suppression capped. Alternatively, if you don't want to grab all of these and these, you can go back to allocating Instinct. This will mean you're at about 70% spell suppression, and then you just want to grab the chance to suppress spell damage is Lucky Mastery. It's not as good as being 100%, but it's pretty good still. That will sort out your spell suppression. As for attributes and resistances, again, look at your charms. Charms are the solution to the problem that using Asenaths poses. So if you feel like you want to improve your damage and clear, give this a shot. Just make sure to use your charms and your passive tree to fill in the missing gaps. It is definitely worth it. I will say that the clear feels a lot better using this. As for this implicit, chance to gain Unholy Might for 3 seconds on kill. Unholy Might grants us 30% of Fizz as extra chaos, huge damage boost, it's excellent, but this now costs about 45C instead of the 5C I paid just for a normal Cold Iron Point. But if you do want to get Unholy Might, you can use Sin's Rebirth. This is an excellent flask, gives us Unholy Might during effect, and it grants us immunity to burning and ignite. This fairly cheap, I believe it's 15C. If you do go this route, you can swap out your Jade Flask. You can see my evasion rating is, with my Flask up, about 35k. With this Sin's Rebirth, it's 23k. So you are sacrificing, I believe, about 30% of your evasion rating compared to using a well-rolled Jade Flask. But early on, this is really good. Later, when you can afford either a Cold Iron Point with Unholy Might on kill or an Obliteration with Unholy Might on kill, you can swap back to your Jade Flask, which provides a greater amount of defense. Now, speaking of flasks, a lot of people They are still messing up their flasks. However, the POBs I have seen have been really good for the most part. A lot of people are paying attention to their flasks, and it is very important. I'm going to demonstrate why. So firstly, my flasks have been going pretty much the entirety of the video. Well, this one has. The rest have not. And I'll speak about the whole concept of going infinite on your flasks. Firstly, most important thing, the flask that you want to go infinite is your Ruby flask or a Bismuth flask. This is much easier to go infinite on, as in it will have 100% uptime. The reason we want this to have 100% uptime is because of that elemental resistances during effect. Of the other flasks, I said you can swap and change the suffixes. So if your Jade has armor as a suffix, that's fine, or movement speed. Just make sure you have these 3 suffixes on these flasks. On your Ruby flask, 100% mandatory, you need that elemental resistance suffix during effect, because we want this flask to be infinite. This is permanently capping our resistances whether or not we are mapping. So you can see without my flasks, resistances are big yikes. Put it on, they're capped. So this one you want to be infinite. Just do be aware of map mods that reduce flask charges gained, but generally when you're mapping, you're killing enough that all your flasks should be going infinitely. Reuse that end of flask effects, as the enchant is preferable to reuse when charges reach full. If you do get reused when charges reach full and you run out of instilling orbs, keep it, but you can also go to your crafting bench and go the exact one you want. So you can say reuse that end of flask effect, cost 5 instilling orbs, 5 glass blowers, baubles. But now, let's hop over to PoB. I just want to talk about flasks and their impact. So let me move my head over here because we're going to have to look at the EHP. So I want to show you the impact of badly rolled flasks compared to well-rolled flasks. So this is my build that I just showed you, imported into PoB. My flasks are properly rolled. So we have that evasion rating suffix. We have the armor suffix on our granite flask. Now let's say we rolled our flasks badly. So we're sitting at about 51k EHP. This is without Immortal Call or endurance charges. Our armor 31k, evasion 36k. Now let's say we roll our flask badly. So let's just see, we go from 31.8k to 19k. So that suffix on your flask has a massive impact. 30%, that lowers our fizz max hit quite significantly. Goes from 9.5 on a badly rolled flask to 10.8. You will feel that difference. Same with Jade flask. So Jade, we go from 36 to 27 on a badly rolled one. Another thing I've seen in some POBs is some of you, you're level 85, you haven't done your Uber Lab. Your Uber Lab really matters. So let's say you've forgotten to do your Uber Lab. Magic Utility Flask applies, you have 30% increase effect. Let's remove that. And then let's say our flasks are rolled badly. And our armor, which previously was sitting at about 31k, is now 18. And the other was about 36, is now 25. It all adds up to really significantly reduce our effective hit pool. So that's the impact of rolling your flasks well versus badly. Make sure you pay attention to your flasks. Now, I want to talk about the whole concept of going infinite on your flasks, and we can actually check this out fairly well in PoB. So on PoB, you can see here, if you zoom in, scroll down, you can see it says Flask Uptime, 100% average, 95% minimum. So which of the prefixes are best on our flasks to help us reach as close to infinite as possible? Currently, my Jade flask only has an uptime of 37%. This is sitting in hideout, not killing anything. Quicksilver, 37%, and Granite flask is 45%. So just sitting in my hideout, these are going to run out, which is okay. We're killing stuff in maps, so they will go up. But how do we improve this? There are a number of utility flask prefixes that we can use, and some are better than others. So let's just look at a Jade flask over here. So on our Jade flask, we have charge recovery, we have increased duration, reduced charges per use, and we have maximum charges. Now, in order of importance, we have the best one in terms of Flask Uptime is going to be increased charge recovery, reduced effect. You can see here at the bottom, Flask Uptime, 57% average, 44% minimum. If we go up, we can get this to 62%. However, we do get that reduced effect, so I would not use this one. Second up, increased charge recovery. This is the better one. At a max roll, this gets our Flask Uptime to 56%. On a Jade Flask, 56% versus 37%, much better. So this increased charge recovery is your most favorable prefix. Now, reduced charges used, this is a 53% Flask Uptime, and then increased duration, 50%, and then maximum charges is by far the worst, sitting at 37%. So best is going to be increased charge recovery, then reduced charges used, then we have increased charge duration in order. That'll be on the screen so you can see. Prefixes matter, suffixes matter. Early on, it's going to be less important, but once you can afford to invest in your flasks, it's very important. You can see the impact of having max charges versus increased charge recovery. It's quite significant in terms of Flask Uptime. We can also further improve this with belt modifiers. So let's talk about some of the mods we can roll on a belt. So let's just get a normal belt, let's say a leather belt. And now we can look at the different flask mods we get. So we have increased flask charges gained, reduced flask charges used, increased flask effect duration. In order of best to worst, we have charges gained and increased duration are tied. This is on a max roll of these modifiers. So we get increased flask charges gained and increased flask effect duration combined. If we add this to our build, you can see, and this is not easy to hit, by the way. This is very not easy to hit, and especially not at a max roll. But that takes our flask on our Jade Flask, let's see, from 37% uptime to 64% uptime. Now we get the Perpetual. Now this is at a 96% uptime. So it isn't easy to get that 100% perfect uptime sitting in your hideout. I don't feel like it's very practical either, because when you're mapping, you're killing stuff, but maybe if you're bossing, you're gonna have more of a problem. But these are the kinds of things we need to do to get to that close 100% uptime. There's also some things on the tree, things like Flask Effect Duration over here with Natural Remedies. This is an excellent wheel, by the way. If we grab that, our flask should have 100% uptime. So if you see belts like this, this is why they are very expensive. It makes getting that 100% uptime really good. Do keep a lookout for these mods. However, this is sort of luxury item type thing that is not going to be affordable early on. Now, next thing, a lot of people have been asking about Ailment Immunity. So early on, in terms of getting Ailment Immunity, Purity of Elements in yellow and white maps. But then later on, what we can do is capture Merveil the Returned. If you get an Underground Sea map, I don't know if I have one, it's a tier 10, no, but it's over, I believe it is normally a tier 10 without your Watchstones. But here, Underground Sea, what you want to do is grab yourself one of these little guys, a Divine Vessel. You're going to put it in your map device like that and that. Complete the map. After you've completed the map, it'll capture the soul of Merveil. This thing will go blue and shiny. You right click it and now you are freeze immune. For shock immunity, it's not easy to get completely shock immune, but Soul of Garakan, this will give us 60% reduced effect of shock. This is very nice. However, I am using Ralakesh. Bleeding is more scary to me currently. As for Ignite immunity, since Rebirth comes in. But if you have a bit more currency, let's look at some options with gearing. So we have two options. Ancestral Vision modifies the chance to suppress spell damage. Also apply the chance to avoid ailments at 50% of their value. So with this, if we have spell suppression capped, we can get 50% chance to avoid elemental ailments. Now, where do we get that other 50%? So on our tree over here, we have life and elemental avoidance. These 2 points will grant us another 12% chance to avoid elemental ailments. So now we are 38% short. Where do we get the rest? Well, we can get that on boots. So let's look at our ancestral vision boots that I've made. With these, we can get from Eater Exarch. Well, this comes from Eater. Chance to avoid elemental ailments. It's one of those little blue modifiers. We can get 15 to 17% on lesser. And then chance to avoid elemental ailments. We get this from Essences of Loathing. Let's see if we have one in the stash. I think we do. Essence of Loathing. You can see boot, chance to avoid elemental ailments. So you combine that implicit with this and you should be able to hit that 38% reasonably comfortably. If you are missing, let's say 2 or 3% chance to avoid elemental ailments, you can grab another one of these points and then maybe unspec this life over here. So that's option 1. Option 2 is Stormshroud. Stormshroud, what we can do with this is modifiers to chance to avoid being shocked apply to all elemental ailments. So if we can get 100% chance to avoid being shocked, we will be entirely elemental ailments immune. Again, boots, this is where we get our chance to avoid being shocked. So on Eater, we have chance to avoid elemental ailments, and this does apply to shock. So 20% chance to avoid elemental ailments is 20% chance to avoid being shocked. Then on Eater, we can get chance to avoid being shocked. So these are fairly low tier mods. I think this is lesser. It's the one above lesser. So on our implicits, there is 54%, or we can get 50%-ish. Then Essence of Torment, we can get chance to avoid being shocked. So on our boots alone, we can pretty much get shock immunity combined with these 2 points on the tree. Alternate sources of shock immunity or shock reduction is from jewels. So we can get on an Abyss jewel, we can roll chance to avoid being shocked, and this is a very nice roll. We can go from 31% all the way up to 50%. So you could just pop 2 of these, one in your belt, one on the tree. Obviously you would need to get them perfectly rolled or close to perfectly rolled. One in your belt, one on your tree, or get one of the mods on your boots. But Stormshroud is excellent. What is it sitting at on the trade site? It is currently selling for... It's not cheap, that's for sure. 2.6 divines, and Ancestral Vision is sitting at 3.5 divines. So this is not a cheap option, and the fact that you also have to do your boots on top of it. Later on, it's something we can worry about later on, but before that, use your Pantheons and your Flasks, and if you're getting killed by Ignite, you can use Sin's Rebirth. Now, a couple of small things that people might have missed, and these are things I saw in almost every POB I looked at. This 8% increased damage for your aura and herald skills affecting you. This is a lot of damage. It's not insignificant. I'll show you again in POB. This, let's see, we're sitting at 4.1 million total poison damage. If we unclick this, you can see poison DPS minus 7%. That goes down to 3.8. And this is 1 point. This is massive, massive, massive value for that 1 point. Increased effect of your aura. This is just an all-round great thing for your EHP, for your damage, for everything. So make sure you've allocated these points, especially this damage one. This is really good. Another thing that's really good for mapping is this Chaos Mastery. Recover 1% of life per withered debuff on each enemy you kill. This is very nice. Won't help you for bossing, but for mapping, it's excellent. Also, let's talk about our Anoint Exceptional Performance. I'm still using this. We will swap over to Overcharge later. Don't forget to anoint this. This essentially grants our BV more than a second of uptime. So lots of small little things you can do to improve it. These are in the POB, but it's easy to miss when there's so many things. Now, another thing that we need to talk about is Cruelty versus Void Manipulation. This was brought to my attention by Timmy. He said, hey, why aren't we using Cruelty? It does more damage. We'll go over that, but this is potentially a bit of a bait. If we have our Void Manipulation, you see we're sitting at 112 poison DPS, 4.1 million. With Cruelty, it's 116, 4.3 million. So Cruelty, much better jewel, right? Well, let's have a look at what it actually does. So Cruelty is a buff associated with Cruelty support, grants more damage over time to supported skills. Cruelty grants us more damage over time based on the percentage of maximum life removed by a damaging hit. So for normal mapping, maybe your hit removes a decent chunk of life from a white mob, which means we'll be hitting that maximum Cruelty value, which in this case will be a damage increase. However, if we are hitting a boss, our hit damage is actually very low. So you can see our hit damage over here, 23,000, very low. So for mapping, you probably will see you're at max Cruelty. However, if you're trying to fight a map boss or a pinnacle boss, like let's say Uber Elder, we have our Cruelty up. So here at max, 40%, great, doing tons of damage. What if you get 5% Cruelty? Oh no, we are losing 1 million damage. What if you hit 10%? We are losing a ton of damage. So Cruelty? No, I would not use Cruelty because for mapping, cool, great, more damage. However, we don't struggle with damage for mapping. For bossing, that's where we need most help on this build, and that's where Cruelty is weakest. So that's a nope for me. Cruelty out of here. The gem links we have currently are good and fine. But now, last but not least, let's talk about this +2 Dendrobate. This adds a ton of damage. It is so good. And the good news is it's a bit of a pain to make, but it is fairly cheap. I made mine for about 3 divines. I'm going to do a separate video on how to make something like this. However, in the meantime, in Discord, I have written out an exact step-by-step on how to make this Dendrobate. I recommend you go check it out. It's linked in the BV Pathfinder updates channel. It's all listed there. It's not that hard. It is a bit of a pain, but the damage we get from this +2 is, let's just see. Here's our Blade Vortex. Again, sitting at about 4.1 million. If we drop this by 2 levels, it's 3.3. This is granting us a massive amount of damage. I believe it's about 25%. So if you've got all your other gears sorted, you have a few divines lying around, this is your next thing. Again, I'll do a video on it, but it is written in Discord. So check the link in the description for the links to Discord. I believe that's going to be it. If you have any other questions, be sure to leave it in the comments or join the Discord and ask over there. If there's enough, I'll do another update. The build is feeling really good. Do you want to see a map? Let's run a map with the new build. Okay, before we go. Just, I'm trying to get something juicy. These are boring. Okay, let's run a map so you can see. Start a map, put on our things. Let's do this Wildwood. My 2 cents on this. I don't know if people want a whole video on me talking about it, but yeah, it's a league mechanic that exists. These dudes all are, I believe, these purple dudes have chaos resistance. So if you're doing your BV and you're like, why don't these purple guys die? They seem to have very high chaos resistance. So many dead ends. So you can see since the start of our map, our flasks have been upped. Have 100% uptime. Oh, another thing while we're in maps is that Alex C had some cool tech. Let me quickly show you, which is linking our shield charge with Hex Touch and Despair. So when we shield charge through enemies, we automatically apply Despair to them, which is great, especially with Asenath. Downside, 35% less effective supported curses with Hex Touch. So instead of getting that -30 to Chaos Res, we're probably getting about -20. So another option, if you want, for making the build feel a bit smoother is using that Hex Touch linked with your shield charge. Another thing, I think a lot of people charge their BV too often. It has about an 8.4 second uptime, so you really don't need to be charging it that much. I had to pick literally the worst map to do this on. Let's grab that and grab that. That guy's dead. These guys are dead. So you can see it's nice and smooth. Don't forget to actually charge your BV before running into packs. Ooh. And the build has been performing well for the most part in ultimatums. They can get kind of brutal. Maybe I'll do a video on ultimatum, but just curse that guy, use our Varblade VV, and kill the boss. But yeah, build performing well. That's going to be it. Again, leave any questions you have in the comments below. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Exile, you're making me nervous.